The recipe for drawing good hands is a short one. All you need to understand is basic anatomy, a few proportions, foreshortening, then decide on a general style or level of detail. For this video, I'm going to be using the default Clip Studio Paint brushes, in particular Bit Husky, the G Pen, Lasso tool, and the Fill tool. No matter how boring it may be to almost every beginner artist, and I know because I was there as well, understanding anatomy is the most important. Starting off with the bones, we have the carpals, metacarpals, and phalanges. I'll be covering how to draw the wrist later, and if you are a beginner, it's okay to skip for now since it's a bit more complex and your ability to draw hands won't entirely depend on how well your wrist depictions are. Metacarpals and the first two rows of phalanges are very similar and can be understood as so. The distal phalange is a different shape and looks like this. The thumb is no different in general shape, it just doesn't have the middle phalange. There are three main muscles for the hand. They are the thenar, hypothenar, and first dorsal. They take the general shape of a teardrop. The thenar muscle is the muscle for the palm of the thumb. The hypothenar is the pinky muscle on the outside of the hand. It slightly wraps around to the palm side, but then also to the outside. The first dorsal is found between the thumb and pointer finger on the back side of the hand. If you squish your thumb to your pointer finger, you will see a bulge form, and that is the dorsal. The second most important part is proportions. You don't need to know every single bump of every single bone or muscle or veins or tendons necessarily to draw good hands, but having a solid foundation for proportion, making sure the hand itself is well balanced, is what is very important. Some people might draw hands bigger on certain bodies and sometimes smaller, and that's all okay, it's just that they have it in proportion. From the base of the wrist to the first knuckle is the same length from that knuckle to the tip of the middle finger. The first knuckle of the thumb is lined up about the center line of the palm. The tip of the pinky finger lines up with the last joint on the ring finger. Remember these slight circumferential bends so that you can check each finger's length when drawing. It starts off pretty flat with the knuckles and gets slightly steeper with each joint moving up the phalanges. If you're wanting to draw dynamic hands, then you need to work on foreshortening. Unfortunately, there is no secret to getting better. It is just drawing boxes, cylinders, or any 3D shape in perspective. If you're able to do this and stack them behind or in front of one another, all that's left to do is lay the attributes of the hands over them. The good part about dynamic hands is that not many people have seen a certain hand in some really weird angle, so it's very forgiving and there's a lot more wiggle room than if you were to just draw a hand waving or holding up the peace sign, which a lot of people have seen, and you need to draw accurately or it's going to look very weird. The last section, tips and tricks, is up next, but let me show you how I'd go about adding shading to my hands. In particular, if you're interested in manga, then this is going to be very useful. It's very easy to add tone to your line work. All you have to do is go to New Layer, Tone, and now with the mask selected, press Delete on your keyboard so that it is black, or go up to the Edit, then Delete. Then you just take your brush and paint the shadows on your hand. Here are some tips and tricks, probably more along the lines of just style tips when drawing the hand. Draw the fingers slightly thicker. When I first started drawing hands, my fingers would be pretty pencil thin, and it wasn't until I drew the fingers thicker that they started to look better. Make sure to add the bump before the fingernail. It makes it look a little more realistic and it isn't too hard to do. I only draw 2 bends to the finger for simplicity most of the time, and when it comes to the base knuckles, drawing one long line and a smaller one just under it tends to look best for me right now. Lastly, if I do go for a more realistic hand, I just barely indicate each phalange knuckle, making it slightly bulbous, but more or less kind of the same as what I previously described. For the wrist, just remember to make a slight bend inward, but then lead up to the outer bumps for the ulna and radius. The ulna is the one on the pinky side and is the most important landmark for the wrist. It's the bump you see most often in drawings. When the pinky side of the hand is stretched out, you can indicate a slight secondary bump between the ulna, or it's more indicated on the back side, but it's essentially drawing the wrist. It is a slight secondary bump, and it will just help make your hands look just a little bit better. I'm now going to draw a couple of hands with the information I just gave you. I hope this tutorial was helpful. You should be drawing better hands very soon. Tag me in the practices on Instagram at jsteven__ so I can check them out and give you a like on your post.